Over 14 years of working with retirees and pre-retirees and almost 200 episodes of this podcast, I've seen people make the same 5 mistakes over and over again. These aren't really obscure tax tricks or advanced investment strategies. They're simple foundational errors, and they cost people tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. So today, for episode 200, I'm going to walk you through all 5. If you're within 10 years of retirement, this might be the most useful 20 minutes you spend all year. Welcome back to the Retire with Peace podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dave Zaegel.
Welcome to the Retire with Peace podcast, the podcast where we help you create a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Each week, we bring you expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you plan and live your best retirement life. Whether you're nearing retirement or already enjoying your golden years, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. Let's embark on this journey together and discover how to retire with peace.
The first mistake is confusing tax preparation with tax planning. Filing your tax return every April is not the same thing as planning your taxes. Tax prep is about accurately reporting what already happened. Tax planning is looking forward and shaping what's going to happen so you pay less tax over time. Let me give you a really good example. About 5 years ago, a couple came to us in their early 60s. They've done a great job in savings, but almost everything was in a traditional 401k. Not a big deal, that could still be fine. They also did their own tax returns, and there were no issues there. Everything had been prepared correctly. So overall, they've done a great job. No big errors or issues. But the one missing piece was the fact that they hadn't really looked forward in their taxes and figured out how do they save money over the long term for all of their retirement. Therefore, when we started working with them, we built out the plan to convert a lot of that traditional money over into Roth money. Now, every year we've been doing Roth conversions consistently from that time that they retired, and we're going to continue to do that until they reach required minimum distribution age. They're of different ages. So it's going to be between ages 73 and 75. And that's true of everybody. Depending on your birth age, the required minimum distribution age will start between age 73 and age 75. So every year we've been doing these Roth conversions, and now they have a substantial amount of money in a Roth IRA, and they're going to continue to build that not only as the investments grow, but as we continue to do conversions. It's something that is going to make easily hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference for them in terms of taxes owed over the long term. And it's going to reduce their required minimum distribution when they get to that age and give us a lot more tax flexibility at that point in time. So for anybody who's unfamiliar, we've covered this a lot in the podcast previously, but a Roth conversion means moving money from a traditional IRA or 401k over to a Roth IRA. You pay tax on that transition now, but once it's in the Roth IRA, it grows tax-free and comes out tax-free for the rest of your life. Therefore, we want to use these years after the retirement date and before required distributions happen. We want to use those years that generally have a lower taxable income and make those conversions and pay that tax now while tax rates are lower. And if you have a situation where tax rates aren't lower, perhaps the Roth conversion strategy doesn't work for you. But for an awful lot of clients that we work with, it's a powerful strategy and makes a gigantic difference tax-wise over the long term. So here's the bottom line. If your CPA only sees you between February and April, you have a tax prepared, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But you don't really have a tax planner if that's all you're doing. Those are two very different jobs, very different things. A lot of times when we're doing the tax planning, yes, we do the tax prep in that season of the year, But generally, we're also planning during that time and then also throughout the year, and especially as we get later into the fall, we want to make sure that we have everything taken care of from a tax perspective, not just for this year, but how are we setting that up for many years to come. Mistake number two is retiring without a safety net outside the stock market. There's a concept called sequence of returns risk, and the basic idea is this. The order in which you get good and bad returns matters as much or more as what your average return is. A 30% drop in the first year of retirement is far different than a 30% drop in the 10th year of retirement. Because in year one, if you don't have money set aside outside the stock market, you're selling investments while they're down in order to cover expenses. What we want to have happen is we want at least 5 years of income set aside outside the stock market that we can use to pay for living expenses. That way, the stock investments can continue to recover and grow, and we're not worried about selling while everything is low. We want to have taken care of that selling while everything is going well. And therefore, we have good money that was up higher in the stock market. We've taken that out already, and we have it ready to go for the next 5 years, not 3, not 4, 5 years, in case the market takes a big dip. Most bear markets and big drops have recovered within about 5 years or less. So give yourself that 5-year runway, take it out of the stock market, have it set aside in something like individual bonds, CDs, something with definite maturity values and dates, where you can take that out, have it ready to go for income in case something bad happens in the stock market. I'll give you an example. Take two different retirees. One retired in 2028 with $1 million, and another retired in 2012 with $1 million. The person that retired in 2008 with $1 million went through the big crash of 0809, which was awful. If they were invested just in the S&P 500, 10 years later from their retirement, they would have about $1.4 million. Not necessarily terrible. Actually, they're still up from where they started, but that's not a tremendous gain. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they took that big hit early. It was all in the stock market, and they had to take out money for living expenses in those years as well. So that 1.1 did go to 1.4, but that's not really a great return over 10 years. Contrast that with somebody who retired in 2012. Now, in 2012, it was the start of a great bull market run. We did have a big drop in 2020 due to COVID. However, that person that retired with $1 million in 2012 and had it all on the S&P 500 index, they're at about 3.6 million. Quite a difference. And it all has to do with the sequence of return risk and also what the market was then like afterwards. Because keep in mind, the person that retired in 2008, they got a big chunk of that bull market run after the crash also, but they took too much of that hit early on. So it's not that you won't see any decline if the first year or two of your retirement has a bad stock market. You'll still see some decline, but we want to buffer that. We really need to have money set aside outside the stock market. Those 5 years of income need to be set aside. So that way you have that and you don't have to pull from the investments. It's going to help your stock investments be buffered against the big drop and also help your stock investments recover and grow better for the long term. It's really important. I can't emphasize this enough. It's not only about the math, it's also about the psychology that allows you to stay in the market, knowing that that money that's in the market is not needed for 5 years. You already had that set aside. It's much, much easier not to sell out and get freaked out because everything's crashing around you. You already have the money for income. Use that. Let the rest grow in the stock markets, knowing that, at least in any recent history we've had, including the 08-09 crash, including the Great Depression, all of them took roughly 5 years or less to recover. So give yourself that cushion, allow yourself the peace of mind to know that you have your income covered, and also give yourself the benefit of letting the stock investments recover and grow well from there. Mistake number 3 is letting a single holding become too large. I also had a podcast where I referred to these things as shiny objects, and yeah, that can be taken the wrong way, because there's a lot of good investments. There's some bad investments, but there's a lot of valid investments in things like cannabis stocks, crypto, gold, private credit, the AI stock of the moment, the meme stock craze that happened years ago. All this stuff can have some validity. It's not that they're bad investments per se. Some might be, but in a lot of these cases, especially the ones I just mentioned, they're very valid investments. There's nothing wrong with them. We just have to keep them in a proper proportion so that if, and in some cases, a lot of cases, when something doesn't go right with them, we're not hanging out there and we're not getting crushed when they come back down. We've seen this a lot. We had a strong run in cannabis stocks several years ago where they shot up and then they went straight back down. And you'll see a lot of similar movements in cryptocurrencies. A lot of money was made in that, and then it fell off. Doesn't make either of those bad, because if you were in them, you made a lot of money. What got you killed was if you didn't sell any and you let those get to be too large of the part of your portfolio. If they got just way outsized and you had, 30, 40, 50% in there in those things, you took a beating when they dropped. So the point is that not that you can't invest in them, you just have to keep them in the proper proportion. So that way, no one thing is really ruling your entire portfolio. This goes as well for things that aren't speculative or aren't volatile. It could even be a stock that you've held for 30 years and it's just gone up and up and up and up, and over time has grown to be a really high percentage of your overall portfolio. That's great. You got the gains. Celebrate them. There's nothing wrong with that. We just have to understand that if something goes wrong in that one thing, it can really mess up a lot of the retirement planning and cause you to have to make bigger adjustments than you should do, because again, it might just harm the long-term plan. This also goes for company stock. We've seen this a lot, where somebody may work at a company for 10, 20 years, and it's awesome that they've accumulated this company stock. But they get to this point where later on in their working career, they have a lot of stock in that company and they're also getting income from that company. So if something happens to that company, not only could their stock go down, but they could also maybe lose that income and be looking for a different job. There's just a lot of risk in having a high concentration in any one thing or in any one certain area. So it's not that you can't invest in gold or silver or crypto or any of those things. You absolutely can. Just have to keep them in the right proportion so that they don't wind up messing up the plan if something happens to them. Same thing goes for any blue chip stock. Doesn't matter if it's Apple, Google, Nvidia, Amazon, Procter and Gamble. Take your pick. Pick any stock. If it's gone up a tremendous amount, as we've seen some of these stocks do over the past several years and certainly the past decade, that's awesome. Great job. Don't just leave it. Right size things as you go. Make sure that it's not getting to the point where it's way out of whack in terms of the percentage that you have in your overall portfolio. Because if it takes a hit, you'll feel it, and it might mess up a lot of your retirement planning. Mistake number 4 is underspending in retirement. I'll get a lot of questions on the 4% rule. It's becoming more and more well known. It's been around for a long time now, but it's just out there on the internets, and people will read about the 4% rule. And so they'll ask me about it, and they'll say, well, how does my retirement work with this 4% rule? And the general answer is if you're using the 4% rule, you're underspending. The 4% rule was created to mathematically show that it's almost impossible for you to run out of money in retirement if you were only withdrawing 4% of your balance. That's overly simplified explanation. I get that. But that's the general rule. So if you take out 4%, it's almost impossible for you to run out of money. Even the very person that created that many years ago has recently come out and said, hey, that was not intended to be the rule to use for retirement withdrawals. It is way too conservative. And really, if you run the numbers, you're going to wind up with a big chunk of money at the end of retirement, which isn't the goal. It's not the goal at all. If you're pinching pennies in your 60s and 70s so you can die with a bigger portfolio at age 92, you kind of missed out. You missed out on retirement. The whole point is to be able to enjoy life and enjoy retirement while you can. Think about it. Your 60s and 70s are some of the best years of your life. Ideally, you're healthy, you're active, you can travel, you can hike, you can go see the grandkids without needing help. You have the energy and the time and the ability to enjoy what you spent 40 years working for. So yeah, if you're pinching the pennies in your 60s and 70s because the 4% rule said you could only spend $80,000 and you were too anxious to spend 90 or 100, you didn't win. You missed it. Really. So I'm not advocating crazy spending in retirement, but just understand that the 4% rule is there for mathematical purposes. In most cases, you can never say always, but in most cases, you're able to spend more than that. And that's the value of getting a good retirement plan put in place. It makes sure that you can spend 5.5%, which is a big difference. Doesn't sound like much for 4% to 5.5%. It's a big difference. It's a lot more money that you can spend while you are younger and healthier. So take advantage of that. Don't limit yourself and underspend in those early years of retirement. We see this quite often, and it's okay. It's very normal, but we see quite often where that first year of retirement, especially, people are very reluctant to spend money. It's totally understandable. We see it all the time because you've retired, you've gone from working and building wealth and constantly adding to that investment balance. And now all of a sudden income's going away. You have this chunk of money now to live on, and there's this fear of overspending and drawing it down and really messing up retirement for the long term. That is totally understandable fear. I think most everybody that I've seen has gone through that adjustment period. And once you get through that adjustment period, then people are much more comfortable spending. Therefore, it's why I'm encouraging people and nudging everyone to be okay with spending, especially while you are younger in your 60s and 70s. You're going to have a much more enjoyable and fulfilling retirement, not overspending, but understanding what the retirement plan is and being comfortable spending that money doing whatever it is that makes you happy. Whether it's a hobby, whether it's traveling, whether it's giving gifts, whether it's donating to charity, take your pick. But I want people to understand that it's okay to spend what the good retirement plan says you can spend, and don't limit yourself to something generic like the 4% rule, which again, that was meant for math purposes, not for what you should actually do in retirement. And lastly, mistake number 5, planning the finances but not planning the life. Now, what does that mean? This is the mistake almost nobody prepares you for, and it's the one most financial advisors don't really mention. You can have the perfect investment allocation a bulletproof tax plan, and enough money to live to age 110. And you could still be miserable 6 months into retirement because you didn't actually plan what that life was like, or you didn't plan to take care of your own health and wellness beforehand. So think about it. For 40 years, you had a work that, or some structure that provided structure. It provided identity, social connection, daily challenges, purpose, accolades, pick your pick. It provided a lot of intangibles. When you retire from something without retiring to something, all those things disappear at once. And research consistently links unplanned retirement to higher rates of things like cognitive decline, depression, even mortality. That's no good. We need to have a plan for what we are retiring to. So here's a little exercise. Before you retire, write down what a great Tuesday looks like. Not talking about a vacation or special occasion, just a regular Tuesday in October. What do you do? Who do you see? What are you working towards? Most people can't answer that question, and that's a problem. And it's not that you have to have some perfect solution, but just understand, what would that Tuesday look like in terms of who are you talking to? Are you having coffee or lunch with somebody? Are you exercising? Are you working on a certain hobby? What are you interested in? Your perfect Tuesday might be, I sleep in and then I have a nice quiet breakfast and I go exercise and then I have lunch with my spouse or a friend. And you can make your own day. It's up to you what you want it to be, but have some idea. It won't be perfect. At least have some idea of what you are retiring to and not just what you are retiring from. And here's one more thing on this that I want to emphasize, because we've emphasized it quite a bit on a lot of our episodes so far. Your health is part of your retirement plan, whether you treat it that way or not. All the money in the world can't buy back a body or mind that you stop taking care of at 55. That's why I've spent so many episodes on sleep, strength training, protein, water, walking. All of that is super important. It's not off topic. It's the foundation of every retirement plan. If you don't have your health, all the money in the world isn't worth it, and you're not going to enjoy retirement as well. We've seen a lot of this firsthand, both the good and the bad. So please make sure that you are taking care of your health even before retirement, but especially while you're in retirement. If you have a little bit more time because you're not working, that's usually the case, make sure you're spending it on health. It's probably the best investment you can make in your retirement, not only monetarily, but also just in terms of satisfaction and longevity and being able to just get around and do what you want to do. Those are the 5 big mistakes. And if you've listened and you thought, I'm probably doing 1 or 2 of these, you're not alone. Almost everybody is. The question is whether you address them before they get expensive or after. So if anything that I've covered resonates with you and you want a professional set of eyes on your own retirement plan, you can reach out to me at cwosforhire.com. I offer a complimentary 30-minute conversation to anyone who would like to see whether or not we're a good fit. There's no pressure, no sales pitch, just a conversation about your situation. So the website has more information and a place to sign up for a time on my calendar. And to everyone who's been here for any part of the last 200 episodes, thank you. Hopefully I'll have 200 more episodes. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.